Hey, everybody. Welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vandergens. I'm the founder of Ensō Coaching and Consulting, and I am here with two of our amazing coaches, kicking off season 2 of the As You Are podcast, Kathleen and Adam. Hey, guys.
Hey, Leslie. Season 2.
Season 2. We talked to Libby, and now we're talking to you guys mostly because we're launching a new program, which we kind of teased a little bit at the end of season 1. But we're going to get into that. But how are you guys doing?
Doing well. It is pretty incredible to think that the Ensō journey has come as far as it has in such a short amount of time.
It is kind of amazing, isn't it?
I think it's really fun, and it's hitting a zeitgeist, I feel like, in I don't want to say the industry because there are so many industries that we touch, but it really seems to be coming at a time when people are eager for transitions in their life, I feel. I don't know what is that Mars retrograde or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
maybe that's what it is.
Mercury, whatever planet. I don't know.
I heard Venus in retrograde.
Okay, well, they probably are all different things.
Pluto in retrograde.
Yeah. Poor Pluto. What are you? I don't know.
Yeah.
He needs coaching.
Yes.
But, it's so interesting. I mean, it's interesting that you say that because I think at times, right, like we're in the journey. And I think this is so true for anybody who's kind of on their own or starting a business or, is you get into the nitty gritty and it sometimes feels like, oh, it's so, we're not making the progress that we want to, or I'm not seeing the fruits of our labor. And then you kind of get the pulled back, more global perspective. And, and it is pretty amazing that we've come as far as we have. And, we're touching on all of these different things in such a way that maybe speaks to people,
Absolutely. And I think speaking across multiple levels. And so working with a variety of clients and what we're working on, it ranges from things that are more career focused to family and relationship focused to just overall well-being. And I think this is probably true for all of us, just how energizing it can feel when you have people who are like, oh my God, it's working. And I see my life changing.
No, it's so true. It is. It's so true.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is so good. I mean, it's so nice to hear that, Adam, because I do think sometimes you just get lost in the shuffle and, and it is nice to see the fruits of our labor and the actual work that's happening, even if it is one person at a time. I think that's always what our mission has been.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the exciting thing is that you guys are working on a group program. And Libby and we talked about this a little bit, but one of the things that we've all kind of talked about is how do we make some of the stuff that we're doing a little bit more accessible? Because maybe one-on-one coaching is not for everybody. They don't know what they don't know yet. They're not ready to make that type of investment in their lives. And so the group programs, and I say group coaching, but it's kind of group training coaching, I think, kind of a combination of the two, is an opportunity for them to get their feet wet a little bit and to test out what it's like to work with us. Would you guys agree with that?
100%.
I would absolutely agree. And I also think, particularly in the case of what we're about to talk about, oftentimes a group setting, particularly in an introductory way, can really be a more beneficial way to kick things off than a one-on-one setting.
We're so aligned.
There's a reason why you guys are working together, right?
Yeah.
I do, because I echoing so much of that. I always feel like it's more impactful to learn from a peer than necessarily someone outside of a dynamic. And so we're coming in, we're going to be introducing all this kind of material and framing. And there's going to be a lot of learning there, but the people around you, what they're learning will also, I think, inform what an individual learns.
Very cohort style.
Oh, thank you. That's the perfect word.
Community. I mean, I think that's something that we haven't touched into just yet is the type of community that we can build through some of these programs. And I think it's going to be really cool and beneficial.
I do too. And when people ask me, where can I find resources on anxiety and speaking?
Yeah.
There are articles and there are books and there are videos, but I am not personally aware, not to say it's not out there, but I'm not personally aware of a comprehensive, breadth-focused cohort experience where folks share in this question together. And not just one question, but and this really is going to be Kathleen's realm, so I'll let her talk about this, but just the am I alone in feeling anxious about speaking publicly, whether that is in the context of a presentation or a keynote or an interpersonal conversation.
Right.
And I think that what Kathleen has put together, and yes, we've synergized on it for sure.
Totally.
But I think that what Kathleen has put together is something that I have not seen in the speaking voice world and that I think is so incredible.
Well, what is the program?
Yeah.
Do we have a title officially yet, or are we still noodling?
I think we're noodling just slightly on the title, but it's going to involve public speaking.
Yes.
And it's going to involve anxiety, and it's going to involve breakthroughs.
Absolutely. I know. I was like, all those words we've put out there for the title.
I love it.
I love a breakthrough in the title.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. If anybody has any ideas out there and would like to throw,
there you go.
Throw them in the comment section, a review with a 5-star. You know.
So the group program is a 12-week program
Yes.
on public speaking, anxiety, and breakthroughs.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess that like big step back, we are 2 different coaches that people are going to get with 2 different sets of perspectives, with 2 different sets of experiences, but really trying to bring like those experiences and skill sets to have it feel like this comprehensive experience. So Adam gets to, and I'll let him speak to it. I was like, maybe I speak to yours, you speak to mine. That makes sense. But the way that I've thought about it a bit is the like hard and soft skills where like Adam gets to come in with like all this science and all of this, like, how does your body work, the control over the voice. Something we both tackle into though is authenticity. And then I'm coming in with more of that headspace. Something I feel so emphatically with anything with mental wellness, how the brain will trick you into thinking you're alone and experiencing something. And it'll be like, I'm so weird. Can't imagine anyone else feeling this. What are people noticing? When in reality, it's like, oh, everybody feels that way. Not to be a fallacy, but it's like we all get that way. And I think this comes back to the cohort, how powerful it could be to feel like, am I the only one in the room that experiences this? And it's like, actually, I'm in a room full of people who experience this. And so,
and in fact, isn't it? I don't know. Somebody should find where to cite the statistic because everybody throws it around, but that public speaking is the #1 fear among Americans.
Yeah. And the stat is
100%.
Right? It's like even more than, I think, like spiders, heights, and death are the other ones in that list. To which I'm like, I'll take some of those.
So, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's so true. You know, I think I can speak from my own experience as an executive when you have to go and do even just like a presentation at a team meeting or a training. Or, you know, I've had to speak at one of our old conventions where there's, 5,000 people in the room. Like the headspace of the like anxiety that comes into play and then causes like all kinds of things to start to happen and to shut down is like so true and so realistic, right? Like I think I would love to meet the person who has like no fears and can just come on stage and speak and have complete control over their body. Okay, but Kathleen is the one.
Well, and I think, some of what's interesting to me too in this is, of course, like the variety of settings. And it's not necessarily a universal, I feel, anxiety across the board. Maybe for some people it is. Yeah. But I think for a lot of folks, it can be like, actually, I'm okay speaking in front of a room of 1,000 people who are strangers, but I can't speak in a room of peers.
100%.
Right? So it's why I think like our nuancing of public speaking is like we talk a lot about breadth versus depth with this course because it could go so deep, But it's like, we only have 12 weeks and it's an hour per class. So it's 12 hours we're talking about.
And it's very much a discernment opportunity.
Yes.
Like really, if people leave the course having discerned things about and for themselves in this context and next steps, that's the overarching goal, I would say.
Absolutely. Those aha moments, which I personally really love, where like, and this is one of the things we tackle into even I would say the first session is like, okay, we're all coming together. We get to know each other. This is the course. The first session I'm doing, which is in week 2, is like, what is my anxiety and what is it telling me? And I'm hoping there already get to start to be some of those ahas, because as we progress through the course and as you see like, what is the setting that makes me feel this way? Or what is the component in there that it's like, okay, well, as we understand that more, we're able then to better prepare for that. And so if it's something around like, I'm afraid that I won't be able to answer any questions, then it becomes the like, well, what do you need to feel like you can answer questions? Or I'm afraid my voice might squeak, because like that happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm afraid that I'm going to look a certain way. I'm afraid the audience is going to just be in their underwear, that reverse of like,
Yeah.
They tell you to picture everyone in their underwear, but I don't want that to happen. But these things that can also be like, what's in your control? There's going to be things out of your control, but like, what are those resources that when you find yourself in those uncertain moments, we talk about grounding techniques that are, again, physical, but also headspace. Breath. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
How many people stop breathing as soon as they get on stage?
Everyone. Every person. We all hold our breath thousands of times a day.
Right.
Yeah. I've been holding my breath this whole time.
Wow. That's amazing.
Thank you.
More talented.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
I know,
right?
Or like even speaking extemporaneously, because there are those moments, and feeling comfortable enough in like myself and my abilities that I can feel present. And in that presence, I think that like coming back to aha, that it's like I'm aware of what's happening in the audience. I'm aware of what's happening in myself. And that's the like, there's some of that magic in there, but that's where you have a connection that can really come in. And then, of course, the impact of having an authentic connection between the audience, between the speaker, but that's where you see change.
Yeah.
When I think we both really agree as well that discernment in this arena comes from very practical applications. So as part of this course, the cohort participants will have the opportunity multiple times to practice with one another. They will have the opportunity to apply all of what we're doing in real world scenarios. We're going to talk about, in multiple sessions, we're going to talk about techniques for effective presentations, because oftentimes the anxiety comes from this little voice in our head that accurately tells us perhaps we're not as prepared as we could or should be, and then we get anxious. So how do we step back and prepare in a more effective way that perhaps lessens the anxiety in the moment? So all of these sorts of things that we're talking about are discerned through practical means in our work. And we'll be alternating our sessions. So we'll both kick it off together and be present in the first session. And then we'll be wrap it up in the last session together. But then we'll be alternating, which I think will be really fun and something that will be it'll be cool, I think, for folks, as you said, Kathleen, to be able to experience both sides of that coin.
Yeah. And I think coming back to the comprehensive element of it, in experiencing both sides of that coin, and that it is steady throughout the course. So you can see the way they relate to each other on a consistent basis. So it's not just this like abstract, like, oh, what did we talk about before 4 weeks ago? It's like, oh no, this is in conjunction and really building off of one another too. So like as we've worked together, like, and I know this is probably obvious, but it's like, it's not arbitrary. The sessions that we are putting out there, and specifically in the order that they're coming. Like it has been a very thorough, I want to be like thoughtful process, because of course there's thought in it, but really curated is maybe the word I would bring in.
That's great.
Specific.
Very specific.
Breadth, but specific breadth.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, Adam, you've coached a lot of people in the public speaking arena. What are some of the things that you're bringing kind of from your experience, and what have you seen as common threads through those clients that you guys are kind of taking into this group program?
So for me, a definite common thread is that a lot of executives, and it doesn't have to be executives, teachers, actors, anyone who speaks publicly, which is pretty much anyone. One of the common threads that I see all the time when folks come to me is that they do have a specific thing, not always, but a lot of times folks have a specific thing that they are concerned about. They have often been told that their volume is too low, or that their clarity is not sufficient to be understood.
Clarity in the context of what they're communicating?
Yeah, or literal articulation, enunciation, and or that the I don't know what to do with my hands. That is such a huge one. When I'm presenting, when I'm acting, when I'm teaching, I don't know what to do with my hands. All of these sorts of things, some people will come and say, I simply want to feel more confident. But a lot of times I have gotten the feedback that blank. And I want to know how to correct that. And we're not really looking to correct things. We're looking to find those vehicles that are within our authentic selves, marry those with the practical things that we do, which include exercises in very physical things like grounding. I like to use a lot of principles from the Alexander technique, specific modes of breath work that we are going to employ. Again, we get into very specific places with all of this work. And so I think that whether someone is considering working with us on this program and they have something that they're coming to us very specifically to work on, or they're saying, I just don't feel confident and I would like to feel more confident, I think we're going to be able to touch both of those bases. Even though 12 hours is not a lot of time, again, I think we've really worked together to try to imagine as many possible scenarios from participants as we can to iterate throughout the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, that's something we've talked a bit about, like running with the confidence a little bit further, that it's like, we can help you like look more confident, but also it's not just a matter of like, how am I presenting myself, but also like feeling truly confident, that it's like, I do have control over many elements in this, and I know that I do. And the other thing that I'm really keen on as well is the like, we're talking about what does individual success look like? Like, what is success to me might not be success to someone else, like how we see and define that. And so even in understanding the like, what am I trying to achieve in this is going to be really helpful then. And again, what do you need in order to achieve what your success is?
And I have a question for you, Kathleen. So if I'm someone who is considering working through this course and I say, well, but I already have a therapist and we work a lot on anxiety in therapy. So yeah, this has this public speaking component, but maybe I get everything I need. What would be different about the way that you and we are going to approach the anxiety aspect of this than one might in a more clinical environment?
I love that question. So one, therapy is one-on-one typically. So that cohort element, just right off the bat, what you're going to learn from one another is, I think, like a big distinction right away. And I would add to that like we start the course with anxiety, but then we approach it in so many other ways as the course progresses. And it goes down varying paths. So it's like we start with anxiety, but then we also go into like, I've mentioned all this stuff about confidence. We talk about authentic mindset as well. So it's not, we start with anxiety, it stays there all the way through. I also believe that like keep working with your therapist in conjunction with this. But like with most thing with coaching versus therapy, with coaching, there's the mentality of like, what can you do now? And what are the steps you're going to take moving forward? Whereas a therapist, I often think it's the like, what is the past? Mm-hmm. What is the trauma? What is the grief that you're working to, right?
Getting an understanding of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's value in conjunction. But I think there's going to be, a greater variety in approaches to anxiety that we're going to be tackling. Right. So it's good to have one approach that is very like, this is what we're doing all the way through with a therapist. But this is, I don't want to be like, it's more encompassing.
It's the buffet.
It's the buffet. You know what? Yes, it is the buffet.
This is a buffet course.
This is a buffet course. But I think too, it's again, like what is another perspective that can come to this as we try to understand the very complicated mind.
Yes.
Right. And so by, it's like, I remember, it's going to be a buffet anecdote. I remember being a kid and going to an Indian restaurant where there was a buffet and we loved it. But like, a couple of my siblings and I were like, we always know we want the chicken tikka masala. But my older sister, who's like the oldest, and so by extension, Posse, and I love her, she would be like, no, you can't just get that one thing. You've got to try, this over here, this over here, this over here, this over here. And like, go figure, I loved all of those. And in fact, those things became my favorite. So by having a buffet.
What a great opportunity.
To try
you
something.
Get to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Adam, always you got the right thing to say.
It's not true.
No. But I mean, like, I feel like that really taps into something because so many people will also enter a space where it's like, I don't even know what question to ask. I don't even know where to begin. You don't know what you don't know. And all of a sudden, you're trying a new dish that actually really speaks to what is inside of me.
100%.
And like the potluck analogy for that is that, right? Like, I mean, when you're in a cohort, we're all bringing our favorites or our things that we're trying new for the first time or whatever, and then sharing in that like communal buffet.
Exactly. Well, and I think one of the things that we've talked about as you guys have been working on this program is the opportunity for learning from others and not just from an aha or from a experiential standpoint, but also being able to kind of pay attention to what is working for somebody else. Because I think sometimes we get into our head. I think sometimes I know that we get into our head at times and we get hyper-focused on some minutia, some kind of minor detail. And the reality is that there's a larger global perspective around what is actually happening from a presentation standpoint or from a performer standpoint, right? And the thing that we can get caught up in is that little thing that is not perfect. And we're discrediting ourselves from the message that we're bringing to the table or the energy that we bring or the connection to the audience, which those things are kind of, if we could force rank the most important things when it comes to a presentation, we might be focusing on item number 99. It's helpful when we get to see other people doing their presentations or doing it on a one-on-one basis because we start to gain a little bit of awareness around, man, I was hyper fixated on this one thing that I said that was wrong, but that does not make me as a performer or me as a speaker or me as a negotiator or whatever context, teacher. Yeah, exactly. Whatever context we're leveraging.
And I think in the mindfulness aspect that we're speaking to as well is that like, because again, it's not if something goes wrong. Sorry, it's going to be when something goes wrong.
Right.
That you can then bring yourself back in and not and that it's not like, oh my God, I've done this thing wrong and now I'm hyper fixated on it. But to be able to be like, okay, that happened. I'm letting it go.
Inevitable.
That was inevitable. I'm bringing myself back into the present. I am aware. I'm mindful. These are things, once again, that I can control. That gets you back into that space of like, I got this.
Yeah. The tap dancing, the improvisation, the yes and, right? Like How many times do we sometimes want to reject something that didn't go right versus just accepting it, welcoming it?
Yeah. And also strategies for looking back after a presentation, after a performance, after a class, and saying, how can I, if we're thinking about like the SMART goals, this would be the M, how can I sort of measure what I did in that moment, while also making sure, and I do this in my classes now, when I'm working with performers in a group setting, I will always make sure that before they sit down after they've done their monologue or their presentation, they have to share what they felt was successful about what they did.
It's really important.
Because if we throw that away, then we've gone the other direction.
Right.
So we have to be aware of the things that we felt were successful too, in order to continue the snowball of success.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. And I'm going to run just a little bit further too, in part with the like making space for the successes, because once again, it could be so easy to do a presentation, to speak in front of people, to feel like something goes wrong. That's all that you remember. And it continues to reinforce that every time I speak in front of people, this will go wrong.
Right.
And so you can step back. You can say, okay, this thing happened, and I'm still standing. Don't you know that I'm still standing? I'm not going to sing anymore because we need the rights.
Yeah. 30 seconds.
30 seconds. But right, that it's like, and I'm okay. And actually, everything didn't fall apart.
Right.
And again, when that happens again, how can I prepare for it? And how can I accept it if it goes wrong again?
Yeah.
That this isn't me being wrong. I'm still okay.
Yeah. I think
I was just going to say, and you asked a lot of questions just then, Kathleen, and I think we have built this course off of questions. Instead of saying like, what topics could we cover? That was a result of saying, what questions have we as coaches been asked frequently around this topic? And then those questions have then brought out the topics and the sequence and the scope of what we're doing.
I love that. That mindset of like getting hyper fixated and hyper focused on something that goes wrong. Like this is that whole concept of like when we say like, do not think of a purple chicken.
Oh.
Don't think about a purple chicken. And then all you think about is the purple chicken, right? And so it's like, how do we get into a little bit more ownership and agency around our thoughts in a purposeful, positive way that allows the intent to move forward in the way that we want it to versus, again, don't be anxious.
Yeah.
Don't, screw this up. Like, then that's all that's
leverage,
in our head, right?
That's in the title too, I believe.
Is.
Leverage your anxiety. I guess we do have the title.
Exactly.
Here it is. Just put it together.
Yeah.
I think too, with what you just said, Leslie, one of my big beliefs is that as a public speaker, as a speaker in any kind of arena where you have been asked to be a speaker, it can feel very lonely and isolating, but you should never be alone. This should always have been part of a team in some way before you get to that space where you are speaking. It should have been on other people's ears, on other people's eyes, on other people's minds. It should not have been an isolating experience. So it should not feel isolating when you are there. And I think we are going to go into ways to think about that. Again, coming back to the cohort.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. Please.
Nope, you go.
No, I was just thinking again, and like we touched on this, that and this could be the performer in me that like I love being in a live setting. I love having an audience because it is a feedback loop.
Exactly.
Right? That it's like you're giving something and actually you get something back in return, even if that thing is laughter or applause or silence, that it's like you are getting information communicated back to you. And so in that feeling of might feel like you're alone, how do you understand what's happening in the audience so that it also feels like, no, this is alive. I'm not alone. I've done the prep, practice in front of people, whoever I'm speaking to now, they can also feel part of the process.
Yes.
Love that. Well, so if you guys could synthesize what your customers, clients, people who are going to be participating in this program are going to get out of it, what would you say?
I would hope that by the end of this course, one, our participants are going to feel a shared sense of community, specifically with their fellow cohort members, their peers, but also the sense that I am truly not alone in this feeling, and that I have way more strengths in this arena than I think, because I have seen the reactions of my peers to what I have done, and they were not all negative, and probably were more positive than they were, quote, negative. I also think, on the other hand, that people are going to leave with very specific techniques and lessons learned and tools for questions like, what do I do with my hands? For tools like questions about how far is the microphone from my mouth? For questions about how do I look back on and assess what I did because I don't know. I think that those are the kinds of things, that dichotomy, that hopefully, I would hope, that participants are going to leave the course with.
I love that. Anything you would add?
I mean, just like a ton of echoing. And you said that thing about mics. And as soon as you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was in a corporate world and the number of people who don't know how to use mics is incredible.
It's true.
And it's so, it sounds so simple, but again, it's like there are all these pieces that go into being an effective speaker. And it is sometimes those real, like always return to the word tangibles, that I think is part of it. And then also echoing that you're not alone. You're not alone. Absolutely. And like you also have yourself, right? So it's like you're not alone, and like you can take care of yourself in those moments of feeling alone. Which I'm really adamant on. And how we relate to ourselves, again, that it's like, it's so easy to go down that shame spiral. And how can you set up, because again, I'm like, it's when you go down that shame spiral, what do you have that we are building through this course that catches you? Love that safety net, so that it's like, I am feeling this. What have I learned that I knew helped me then that I can bring in now?
Love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for people to experience your buffet.
Neither can we.
Oh my gosh, thank you for bringing it back in.
The buffet of leverage, public speaking, anxiety management, and what was the third? Fourth one?
I'd bring in there.
Authenticity,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. All right.
We're
it's going to be so good.
I'm so excited too.
Yeah. So this is launching. We're launching this in May. And we will have sprinkles of information out on social media. Join our newsletter, because that's where a lot of information is going to be. It'll be on our website as well. We're going to try to get some information out relatively quickly, but this is a super great opportunity for them to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing. So thank you for doing
and
this.
Reach out with any questions that you have as well.
Absolutely.
Because we are here to answer those.
100%.
Oh my gosh, we love questions.
Yep. Clearly.
Clearly, I know. They go both ways.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And thank you guys for joining us. Please, as always, subscribe to the As You Are podcast on all major platforms, and look out for more information about this new group coaching / training course. And join our newsletter if you have an opportunity to. That would be fantastic. But we'll see you soon.